All right, good. It says we are broadcasting. Okay, okay.
Perfect, guys. So welcome
Numbers are
everyone.
going up.
We'll go ahead and just give a few more minutes for everyone to log in here. All right, you guys. So I'm gonna real quick while everyone's filling in, throw this link into the chat for you all. If any of you are interested in learning a little bit more about scribing, we're going to be having a webinar next week. That's going to be on September 18th at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Sorry, I don't have that written there. And AQD Solutions, who is partnered with Diverse Medicine, is going to be there to talk to you guys about what their virtual scribing is like and answer any of your questions that you guys have. Okay, so let's see here. So posting the link inside of the chat here. And real quick, why don't you guys go ahead and give me a thumbs up inside of the chat if you guys can hear and see us. Awesome.
All right, good.
I just see that link into you guys. Okay, so we're a couple minutes after the hour here, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So like usual, my name is Lauren. I'm gonna be your guys' host and moderator tonight. We have two medical students here are gonna go really in depth about medical school interviews and answer any of your guys' questions. Don't worry if you didn't have any questions at the time that you registered. You can go ahead and throw them inside the chat or the Q&A at any time, and we'll try and get to all of those tonight with you guys. But real quick, like usual, I wanted to walk through the site. So for those of you who don't yet know me from Diverse Medicine, I'm a long-term member and now first-year medical student at the Ohio State University College of Medicine. So I went through this application process as well. I know it can be a bit daunting, but you have so many people here on your side. And one thing that really helped me was using Diverse Medicine here. So let me go ahead and just make sure that I'm with you guys. Perfect. Okay, so here is what your Diverse Medicine profile page is going to look like. If you guys don't have an account, I really recommend that you make one. If you do have an account and you haven't really put too much time filling it out, I think it's really worth investing in. It's a great resource for you to take notes of everything you've done over your pre-med years, to other people, see what they're doing. And it's actually a great way to get recruited into medical school. A lot of people might not know that you can get actively recruited to medical school. And this is one great thing about. Okay, and so once you go to the site here, you'll go ahead and look and see that on this side here, there's all these different resources for you guys to use. So the recruitment one that I'm talking about is right here. And so I have it open here in another tab just for quick access. And this is what it's gonna look like. So you'll wanna fill out your profile and you can go ahead and look at all of the schools. We have medical schools, both MD and DO programs, and also a lot of post-bac and master's programs here who are connected to the site and actively looking through students' profiles. So what you'll want to do is go ahead and click on the school. I'll go ahead and just pull up one for an example. And you can kind of find a lot of their demographics and what their mission statement is, what they're about, a breakup of their student body, and so forth. And it's just kind of a great way for you to get a quick little sneak peek at each school. If you are interested in them, you can favorite and message the site moderator directly. And a lot of times they have admissions deans or admissions officers who are looking through these messages and going through your profiles. So it's definitely something you'll want to take advantage of. Some of you maybe are here a bit early and are wanting to just kind of get an overview of what applying is going to be like next year. Some of you might be applying right now. And even if you applied to some of these schools, go ahead and go back and favorite them on Diverse Medicine, and maybe that can open up just a quick little pipeline for you guys to get in contact with each other. So like I said, this is a great resource. And what I was saying earlier is they'll want to go look at who you are once they get a notification that you favorite them. And so you're going to want to fill this out with a profile picture. Go ahead and put in a little blurb about yourself, maybe a little video, and then all of your activities and most proud accomplishments that you have that you would really like someone on an admissions committee to see. So this is just kind of an easy way to informally get connected with a lot of the admissions committees. And there's a lot of great programs on the site, and I know that they're all on there actively looking. So make sure you make yourself stand out and make your application process just a little bit easier for yourself. And one other thing I would like to share real quick is the pre-health market. So I'm going to go back here to my dashboard, and you'll see here there's this little briefcase and it says services. So if you go ahead and click on this, it's going to bring you to this website here. And this is what the homepage looks like. All of us are pre-med, so we're going to go ahead and click on pre-medical here. And this is where you can kind of see a lot of the doctors or medical students who have services, really, really affordable services for you guys in regards to your pre-med prep, your application process, and so forth. So if I just go ahead and say, hey, all of you guys are here for interview help. Let's say after this, you feel like you get like a good kind of breakdown of what to expect from the interview, but you'd like a little bit more one-on-one help. You can go ahead and come here and purchase any of these medical school interview prep mock trials. And basically what we'll do is we'll work on you one-on-one, give you some mock interviews, some tips and advice, and we will go ahead and get you so that you're feeling really comfortable and you're going to go into your interview and ace it. So these are really affordable prices. I know that a lot of students have really benefited from them. If you're still a little bit earlier on in your application process, we do have personal statement and then also work and activities review here. So you can definitely check all of those out. If you have any questions, feel free to post it on Diverse Medicine. You can message me or Dr. Dale. All of us would love to just help get you connected with whatever resource you want going forward in your application process. And one last little tidbit I have here before I bring on our medical students is the Mentor Center. So this is kind of a new feature here. My personal favorite part about Diverse Medicine was I was able to get connected with so many people. I felt like I didn't really have a lot of mentors who were in medicine or pre-medical when I was going through it. So now that this is easily on the site for you guys to take advantage of, I totally recommend it. So what you can kind of do here is I'll go ahead and pull up Aaron's page because he's going to be speaking to you guys next, is you can go ahead and find mentors and then request mentorship. So this kind of just gives you a little way to connect with any of the medical students or the doctors on the site, and you can kind of see how a little mentorship relationship would work out between you guys and pick their brain about what they did, what they recommend for you, and so forth. So it's just a little bit of an extra resource for you guys to look through. Again, if you have any questions, feel free to post them on the site. So without further ado, let's go ahead and bring Ashley and Aaron on here.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Thank you guys so much for registering, signing up, and for being here today. My name is Aaron Dotson, or student Dr. D. I am a fourth-year medical student at the St. Louis University School of Medicine. I'm originally from Los Angeles, California. I attended the University of Texas at Dallas, and I'm currently applying for residency in ophthalmology, which is eye surgery. So definitely say a prayer. We have a long interview cycle ahead. So very glad to be here. Very glad to help you guys out.
Okay, good luck. I am Ashley Houston. I'm a first-year medical student at McGovern Medical School in Houston. I graduated from Prairie View A&M University. I'm not really sure what I want to do, but I'm figuring it out. But I do know I'm here to help you today. And you want to jump into questions? Or?
Yeah, perfect. Actually, real quick before we start, why don't we just open up with you guys talking about your experiences going through interviews in terms of the timeline, had traditional my interviews, multiple interviews, just kind of give us like a little bit of a background to what your application process was like in terms of interviewing.
Okay. All right, I'll take it first. Okay. It was just last year actually, since I am in one. Let me think about this. It was fun. It was draining. It was short, but it was long. To summarize it, I guess. So I applied. I started my application at the beginning of June because I took my MCAT at the beginning of May. And I don't know if this is out there yet, but I took the MCAT 4 times. I only applied once. So I started my application like June 5th. And I submitted my AAMC application by June 15th. And then I did my Texas application. I submitted that by June 20th. I was verified by the 3rd week in July, I believe. And I tried to submit my secondaries within 2 weeks. So I was pretty much done with secondary applications by the end of the 1st week in August. I received my first interview 2 weeks after submitting my secondary application in August. So that was cool. And that's actually the top choice for me, which was McGovern, and I'm in McGovern right now. So that's cool. All of my interviews were in the beginning. So I only applied to 8 schools. I was really picky with the schools I wanted to go to. I guess it worked out for me. I got 4 interviews. I only went to 3 because I kind of decided that I wanted to stay in Texas. So I applied to 8, but I didn't complete 8 applications, if that makes sense. I started narrowing it down. I was like, okay, do I really want to go here? And it's very expensive to do interviews, like catching flights and all of the other extra stuff. If you have to pay for a hotel, me personally, I tried to see if the school had like a hosting program to save money. So I did all my interviews in September and October, and I was done. I did have an interview in February, but I didn't go because I'd already got accepted to a Texas school on match day, which is February 1st. And now I'm here. So did I answer you? Tag, you're it.
All right. Well, I mean, I'm very impressed that you remember basically all the dates for I submitted this was verified, I got to interview this day, I said this day. So as a 4th-year medical student, I'm a little bit further removed from things, but roughly what I could say is that I wanted to make sure that I applied early, because the trick of the matter is that if you apply early, you have a better chance of getting an interview earlier on in the cycle, and that increases your chances of being accepted. So I applied to a lot of schools. I think I did close to 30 different medical schools across the country in total. Completed all my secondaries. As soon as I got my secondaries, I made sure to have things submitted within like a week's time, I would say. And I believe I interviewed at 6 different places across the country, and I was accepted into 4 different medical schools. All of my interviews except for 1 were traditional, as far as, like one-on-one, where you're interviewing with the attending or the person who's going to be reading through your application or whatever. But I did have 1 interview in particular. I guess I can say the school at UCLA. They had a mini multiple interview, the MMI interview, and that was a day. It was long. It was a training process. It was definitely different, but I know that more medical schools are trying to transition to the MMIs themselves. I know we're going to talk a little bit more about that. Some of my interviews, I would say, were an open file. And what that essentially means, I guess you could say open file, but essentially the person who was interviewing me, they had already read up on everything on my application before bringing me in to meet me in the room and such. And I would say like 1 or 2 of my other interviews were closed file, where the person interviewing me, they met me day of the interview. They had not gone through anything in my application, and it was just like, okay, like, tell me more about yourself. Tell me about X, Y, and Z. And then following our interaction in that interview, they then went back through my application to reread through stuff. But yeah, that was pretty much my interview process. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I love traveling, so I enjoyed being able to travel across the country, be able to experience different cities and stuff. And just like Ashley had mentioned, I also utilized a few of the overnight stay student hosting programs in particular. It helped to save a lot of money. It gave me the opportunity to learn more about the medical school in the city as a whole, and just made for an even more enriching experience.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. Thank you guys. So why don't we go ahead and dive into the questions here. I don't know if you guys have them conveniently pulled up or if you'd like me to ask you them one by one. Give a preference on that real quick.
Yeah, I think you can ask us the questions.
Okay, sure. So we'll go ahead and go through it. Either you can either take the question or you guys can kind of both give your input, whatever you guys would like to share. So our first question is, how much time do you have to swap medicine?
So I don't think there's a time limit per se. Enough time to get out what you want to get out. I wouldn't spend an hour talking about why medicine. I don't even think I ever got the question, why medicine, actually. It's more so like, tell me about yourself. So, yeah.
Okay, so in regards to the why medicine question, I would say I explain my case within 1 to 2 minutes, if that. Your goal is to try to be as relatively concise as possible. You want to get your thoughts and ideas out, and you want for them truly to make sense. Like Ashley said, you don't want to be talking for 10, 15 minutes on why medicine, why you want to become a doctor, because at that point, the person who definitely will interrupt you. But typically for the why medicine portion, it's a wonderful opening. It's a wonderful opening statement for you because the person interviewing you can actually expand further questions upon your answer.
Okay, perfect. And the next question we have here is, what do you guys think the best way is to prepare for an upcoming medical school interview?
Okay, I'll take it. The best way to prepare for, so what did I do? So I rewrote my personal statement, and I took so long writing the personal statement. It pretty much like eliminated, I guess, the amount of time it took for me to prepare for the interview. Because my preparation pretty much consisted of like knowing myself. Anything you ask me, you pretty much want to know like who's sitting in front of me. So it's like, okay, how well do you know yourself, Ashley? And then once I kind of figured out like who am I, like what am I doing, why, what's my purpose, what do I feel like my purpose is, it kind of made the interview process easier for me. I did read a book, and I think it's called The Interview Process, The Winning Strategies. So I spent like 2 or 3 days reading through that, taking the main points from that. I also did one mock interview, but I didn't do it in person. I actually did it over the phone because I was in a rush. I think for me, at the same time I was applying for medical school, I'm a non-traditional student. So I was also applying for a job. So pretty much the same questions that they were asking me in a job, the same questions that I would be getting for a medical school interview. They would always say, tell me about yourself. So I heard that like 6 times already. Like, what do you want to do? What are your life goals and all this stuff like that. So actually job interviews was my preparation, and writing my personal statement was my preparation, and reading the book was my preparation, and doing like one mock interview with a faculty from my undergraduate school. So that's how I prepared. And I also like reached out to other students who were also participating in the interview process. I was like, hey, how's it going? How's everything going? Like, what questions are you typically getting asked, to see if I was on the right page or not, to get a feel for if it was okay for me to be anxious or not, because sometimes I would be full of anxiety, and sometimes I'm like, okay, I feel nothing. Like I don't know if I'm underprepared or if I'm overprepared. It's pretty much, I kind of like go with the flow. I'm like a chill type of person, if you haven't noticed by now.
All right, great answers, Ashley. In regards to preparing for the interviews, I say first and foremost, go through your application with a fine-tooth comb. Essentially, anything that you put on your application is fair game. And I have one interesting story. There was one person who was applying at my medical school, and he put on his application that he was fluent in Japanese. And, you know, funny enough, he was interviewing with our dean of admissions at that time, who he wasn't the most fluent in Japanese, but I mean, he knew some stuff. So our dean of admissions started talking to the applicant in Japanese. The applicant literally he was like, wait, I can't say anything. I don't know what this man is saying. And that really was a negative output on the interviewee. So first and foremost, know your application very well. Do not lie on your application, and just be prepared to be able to talk about and expand upon whatever it is that's within your application itself. For me personally, other ways that I helped to prepare myself was I definitely utilized the mock interviews that were at my undergraduate institution. I found that to be very beneficial. I also paired up with a few of my other pre-med friends. And, you know, I gave them my application. They would ask me interview questions. We would go back and forth. Essentially, is you want to practice, but you don't want to sound too rehearsed. You want for this to come out and to flow so that you're showing your best self. But like I said, you don't want to be to rehearse itself.
Perfect, thank you. And so let's go ahead and dive into this next one here. So this is asked by the same person. They were wondering, how many questions should a student have prepared to ask their interviewer? And also, what types of questions do you recommend they ask?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the worst things you can do when you're interviewing is when they ask you, well, so what questions do you have? And you're just like, well, you know, I don't have any questions. I mean, I think that went good. I would say always come with at least 1 to 2 questions. You don't have to have a whole book and list of different questions to ask. Some good, insightful questions to definitely ask the person who's interviewing you could be like, well, what brought you to this medical institution? Where do you see diversity, or where do you see the academic trajectory, or X, Y, and Z within the next 3 years, within the next 5 years? What is your favorite thing about the medical institution? What is one thing that you wish could be changed? Or what's one thing you wish you would see more of or be improved? And this gets the interviewer, thinking about their time at the medical institution, and it can definitely turn into an expanded upon conversation. You typically don't want to ask a lot of questions that are already easily listed on the website, because that's just traditional within interviews. But I would say, ask insightful questions. You don't have to ask them anything that's like ethical or whatever, but just be insightful.
So I actually hosted someone who had an interview today, and I was like, hey, if you have 0 questions, I have 1 question for you that I suggest that you ask. That question could easily be, so you're talking to the interviewer and you're like, hey, so what is it that you wouldn't change about this school? Like, what is it that you actually love the most? It shouldn't change at all. And then if possible, could you name something that the school could possibly improve on? Because I personally believe that no matter how great something is, it could always be better. So I'm looking for if the school is open to change and how open they are to students, our feedback. I know my institution in particular is very open to listening to students, to making changes, to making sure that the next incoming class is better. So I will lean more so towards how the students are being treated by faculty, whatever is important to you. I think that's how you gear a question. Everything that Aaron said, I'm tagging along with what he said. That's definitely what I did as well. And I think it depends on who you're interviewing with. It's different. So if it's a student, then it's more so I don't know, people typically ask how's your social life? How's class? How's the exam? How do you like the curriculum? Are you happy? How supportive is the staff? For me, I also was interviewed by an alum. So I was like, okay, so you're an alum. So that means you must be supporting the students. You must come in a group, because I don't think he was the only alum that was interviewing students. So I was like, hey, so how do alums support students? You've been in our shoes before. How interactive is alum with the current students? What do you guys do? And what does this school mean to you? Because apparently you still here, you're still interactive, but why though? So I always want to know people's why whenever they're speaking on behalf of the school, why is it important to you? Because maybe it'll be the same reason for me. If you love it, I may love it.
You know, I completely agree with you, Ashley. Important thing to know is that while you're being interviewed by the medical school, you too are also interviewing the medical school itself, because you have to know, are you going to be a good fit here? Because that's 4 years that is a significant part of your life that you're going to be spending. So just as well as, you know, it can be very, very expensive, but it's an investment overall to your future. So you got to make sure that you are happy yourself. There was one question in the chat over here that I wanted to address, if that's okay. It asks, is it okay to let your passion show during the interview? And I would say, you know, absolutely. One thing that I am very passionate about is music. I'm a classical pianist for the past 17, almost 18 years now. I minored in music while I was in college. And when I was at one interview, I spent the entire interview time talking about my love for classical piano. And luckily, the person who was interviewing me, he loved classical music too. So we spent darn near like 45, 50 minutes talking about composers and what pieces we liked and everything. And because he saw that passion that was shining through me, he knew that I was, you know, dedicated to music. I love what it was that I did. And, you know, we barely even talked about medicine. And at the end, he was like, wow, look at the time. I guess you got to go on. Like, it's those types of interviews that, you know, that they went fairly well. But I would definitely say, you know, yes, absolutely. Show that you're passionate. I want to see that you're passionate about something, you know, within medicine as well as outside of medicine. Showing that you can operate as a regular functioning individual, you know, even outside the world of medicine.
Perfect. Thanks, guys. So Erin, you mentioned earlier that you had actually gone through the MMI process at one of your schools. How do you recommend someone prepare for the MMI style interviews? Because it tends to be quite different from a more traditional one.
Yes, absolutely. So the MMIs, to give a brief description of what they are, while I was at UCLA, Charles Drew, for their program, they had it where it was like 7 to 10 separate doors and rooms. And on the door, they actually gave you a prompt that you had like 30 seconds to read, to gather your thoughts and everything. And then you will walk into the room, and the person who's interviewing you, you have like 7 minutes to talk to them. And then the person who's interviewing you can spend like a few minutes to ask their own questions and do like a wrap up. And you're then at the end, once time is up. And you have to go on to like the next room, the next room. You may have a break and so on. Some of the questions can be very simple. They can be, you know, like, well, tell me more about yourself. Why did you want to go into medicine? Other rooms can be a bit more challenging where they ask you those ethical questions, which, you know, there typically isn't a right or wrong answer as long as you are basically doing no harm. And those can be a little bit more challenging. And at the end of that day, they actually had us pair up into like 3 separate groups of 10, and we had 1 hour to basically develop a plan. Like, for example, the city of Los Angeles gave us $5 million to develop an educational plan to help prevent teenage pregnancy or something. We had to develop a plan as a group of 10 people and then present it to everybody at the very end. So as you can imagine, there's a lot of teamwork that's involved, a lot of thinking on your feet, and just a lot of time management that goes in with the MMIs. The best way to prepare, I would say, I believe that there should be questions that are on either like Reddit, studentdoctor.net, or just general questions around the web. You know, take a few of them. Try to time yourself. Try to practice having a response to relatively generic questions themselves, but I wouldn't spend too much time trying to get down to like nitty gritty questions and to know everything that they're going to ask you. But just, I would say the time management and just being able to think and to verbalize things fairly concisely is going to be the biggest plan. And, you know, for MMIs, stamina definitely matters. They're very tiresome. So if you have a high energy at the first person who's interviewing you, make sure you're trying to keep that energy level up towards the end. For the MMIs, finally, they actually scored us based upon how we did during each individual interview. And I believe like the bottom 2 scores they were omitted, they were taken out, and then they tallied us up towards the very end. I did not get to know my score. None of us interviewing got to know our scores, but it definitely played a role into who was accepted, who was waitlisted, etc.
Okay, awesome. And then Ashley, did you happen to have any MMI interviews?
No, that was actually my very last interview, and I did not attend that interview. I'm sorry.
Oh, no worries. So I'll go ahead and jump into the next question here. I know you'll probably have some good answers for this one. So one of the students is wondering, what are some possible trick questions an interviewer could ask, or any sideball ones like, tell me why we should accept you? How would you go about answering those types of questions?
I guess I can go for this one. So some of the more difficult, challenging questions, in my opinion, were the ethical questions, because, like I said, there really isn't a right or wrong answer as long as you're not harming the patient. And for those, they're kind of intentional to see, one, how are you thinking, as well as, are you able to think on your feet? Are you able to get like a curveball question and be able to pick yourself back up, or are you going to crumble with even like that miniature amount of pressure itself? I wouldn't say go around trying to like figure out, well, what is the correct answer to these ethical questions? Just, speak your mind, be truthful, be honest. When they ask you the question as far as like, well, why should we accept you? Why do you feel like you're a great fit here? This is where doing your homework is going to help you out. So every medical school has their mission statement, and they also have their core values on their website. I would not suggest memorizing the mission statement or core values, but I would say, generally know what they are. So here at St. Louis University, we're very big on helping underserved and disadvantaged populations overall. So if they're asking the question, well, why should we accept you? What makes you a good fit? You can say, well, just like the mission of the school, I too am passionate about X, Y, and Z. And I can provide examples showing how I'm in tune with the mission and the core values, and that will definitely help show the person who's interviewing you that, okay, yeah, this person definitely is going to be a great fit for the school. They have examples to provide. They likely are going to thrive. Yada yada.
Perfect. Thank you so much. And going a little bit more into the specifics of questions, what do you think the best way is for someone to discuss any negative points about their application or their experiences and so forth?
I got you. Okay, so it depends on who you've been talking to and what website you've been on. If you've been on SDN, okay, you might want to take a break, because sometimes things that you may not consider negative, they may think it's negative, i.e. someone may think, Ashley, you took the MCAT 4 times. That's not great. I don't know if you should apply to MD given the amount of times you've taken the MCAT, what your GPA is, and your actual MCAT score that you're applying with right now. And I don't listen to them. I had to get off SDN. I was just like, Ashley, who are you? So actually in my interview, no one ever asked me about my GPA, how many times I've taken the MCAT. What they did ask me is, okay, so one of them, it was like closed case. They didn't know anything about me. I'm introducing myself. So they're like, tell me about yourself, blah, blah, blah. So then they gave me a time. They were like, okay, so tell me about something that I may not know that you may consider negative or like a learning experience. So I told them, okay, so I'd assume that you don't know my MCAT. I'll tell you that I've taken it 4 times. These were my scores. And this is what I learned about myself through that time. So I personally don't believe in things being negative. It just depends on your viewpoint of a given situation. So I guess negative things can be turned into something positive as long as you learn from it. Either you learn from it or someone else has learned from it, either or, but no such thing as negative. Everything is always positive.
And that was very good answer, Ashley. So my negative point on my application was my MCAT. My MCAT was completely trash. I took it twice. I was not proud of my score, and every single school asked me about it. And my rebuttal to that was that I mentioned how I was a neuroscience major at UT Dallas. All my neuroscience and biology classes were pretty much taught by either retired doctors or by PhDs who would actually pull USMLE questions directly on the examinations. And then I would talk about how I would make straight A's in all those classes to show that, I am more than just my MCAT score, that I am ready for the curriculum of medical school. And after that, no one really had much to say following that. But yeah, my verbal reasoning and I, we do not get along. And I took the old MCAT at that, not this new one.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's favorite section is the cars. But so I see a lot of questions coming in here that were previously submitted about how to go about the tell me about yourself question. So are there any certain activities or things to avoid? Should you talk about things that are on your application? Should you talk about things that are different for medicine? What was your guys' approach? What do you think worked or you wish you did differently?
For the tell me about yourself, I feel like I just kept it fairly generic opening up. I was just, explaining, hey, I'm Aaron. I'm from X, Y, and Z. I attended college at blah, blah, blah. I took a gap year doing blah, blah, blah. Some of my friends, they talked about taking a different approach, like talking about their family, like where they're originally from, where they grew up at, how things were in their life and stuff. But I felt like for me, the tell me about yourself was fairly short. And then more questions from the person interviewing me kind of expanded upon that. You can talk about what's on your application. You're limited to the number of characters you can put on your application itself. So typically the person interviewing you is going to want you to expand upon that as well.
So, Ashley, tell me about yourself. I was like, oh my gosh, I've been waiting for you to ask me that. This isn't a job. This is what I want to do. I want to do medicine. I will tell you everything that you need to know. I pretty much just, Ashley, who are you? Ashley has a tendency to be a tomboy because I have 5 brothers. I have no sisters. I'm from a small country town. I went to college in a country town as well, Prairie A&M University. I really love mentoring. And I doubled back. I was like, I have brothers, so I taught myself how to cut hair. I like cutting hair. I am not licensed. I'm a non-traditional student. Right now, I'm taking the time to get to know myself, taking care of my mental health. I've even started gardening. I'm not a grandma, but I like to garden. I'm trying to find different hobbies. I have a guitar. I'm trying to teach myself. And yeah, all of my questions pretty much stem from what I said. I didn't take time to explain things that were in my application because I felt like it was already there. So what do you want to know that isn't there? So that's what I did.
Okay, awesome, great. So I'm gonna jump into some Q&A questions here. So let's see, I see someone had posted a question asking, is it unwise to be adamant about their goal for entering the medical field if it's something along the lines of it's broken and they'd like to contribute to fixing it?
I would say no, it's not unwise at all. I mean, if that's the main reason why you want to go into medicine in general, I feel like that's definitely a good reason. Our healthcare system truly is very broken. I see it every single day in the hospital myself. The key, though, is that if you say that, you have to be able to back it up and talk more about it. Provide examples of how you yourself have experienced this broken system and what you plan to do or what you think you plan to do to fix it within the future.
I totally agree with my guy. Everything he says is correct. I would say the same thing. I would say if you're going in with that mindset and you're doing that on interview day, I would say be mindful of the terminology that you use when backing it up. Broken kind of sounds a little bit negative. If anything, I would say that I'm here to make change. So that's like another important thing when creating questions for medical students and like the faculty there, like how open are you to helping me become the person that I need to be to create these impacts that are needed in medicine? I want to be that person. Can you help me be that person? So that sounds a little bit better. That sounds as if like you're including them on it.
Yeah, that was really great. I completely agree with what both of you guys said. And so building off of the types of questions, how much overlap did you guys have in terms of questions and the types of activities that you listed on your application or your personal statement?
All right, let's go. So I spent a lot of time on A and C, mainly because it was free. I did the fee assistance program. So I was like, okay, let me make sure they know everything about me. But yet and still, I still left off activities. My main thing that I pointed out on there was studying abroad because that was an amazing experience for me. I also put the fact that I served as like a volunteer chairman. I served as a mentor, and I also became a president of a mentoring organization. Mentoring is very important to me. And believe it or not, I also put that I'm an unlicensed barber on my application because I really love cutting people's hair. What else did I put on there? I don't know. I put that I did research. And the only reason why I put that I did research is was because that research allowed me to volunteer in a community garden to provide fruits and vegetables to people who couldn't afford it. So I was like, that's why I want to talk about it. I want to talk about it for the research specifically. In regards to going into the interview, no one really ever asked me about the activities that I put on there. I think someone actually challenged me as to whether or not I could cut hair. I had someone ask me about my experience in Botswana, Habron, which is where I did my public health study abroad. They were interested because I believe they are from Nigeria, so they wanted to know how did I like it in Botswana. Other than that, everything was pretty much like about my upbringing more so than my activities.
Okay, I feel like I had a different experience. I was often asked about the activities on my application, in particular the research that I did as well as the summer programs that I did. So I am a proud alum of the Summer Medical and Dental Education Program at the Yale University 2012. I also did research at Johns Hopkins in 2013, and I also trained to do neurosurgery in mice and rats for my junior and senior year in college. So research that's on your application, if you place it down there, you better be able to talk about it, because that's a huge point that they try to look for in regards to the activities. But kind of like what Ashley said as well, they truly just want to get to know you on a more personal level. The interview process it shouldn't be like a grilling type of process, trying to shake you or everything. No, like getting the interview is more than half the battle. They would not offer you an interview if they did not think that you were a good candidate for the school already. The many people that are interviewing you, they know that you're going to be fairly nervous, so they do the best that they can to just keep it nice, chill environment, conversational and stuff. So, but me personally, I did find a lot of overlap about what I put in my application as well as what was asked during my interview process.
Okay. And then did you guys have any science questions asked to you during your interview, or was it more just like your involvements, hypothetical situations and so forth? Like, were there any hardcore science questions that you were asked with a right or wrong answer?
Yeah, so I wasn't really asked any hardcore science questions at all, besides like talk more about your research projects and research experiences. I think the most difficult question I may have gotten that may be looked at kind of weird is they may have asked me like, well, what are your thoughts on universal healthcare? What are your thoughts on the way healthcare is going now and in the future and stuff? But as far as like calculate X from the quadratic equation or whatever you guys do in college nowadays, nothing like that. You ain't got to write out the whole Krebs cycle or nothing like that. No.
Okay, so yeah, different or kind of sort of the same. No science questions whatsoever. Actually, no ethical questions whatsoever. I don't know, maybe I got lucky. Everyone was like really like best friend vibes. I don't know, but it was nothing hard. They literally just wanted to know like, are you really what we have read on paper? And I'm like, yes, it's me. I'm Ashley. Let me in.
Well, that reminds me of this one question that someone had posted earlier, and it's in regards to what do you do if you feel like you're kind of not connecting well with the interviewer, or you're getting a negative vibe from them? What should you do during your interview to try and kind of navigate that?
Right. Unfortunately, I did not have that experience, but I would say that if I did, I would need to understand that in that given day, they didn't wake up to be like, oh my gosh, I'm going to interview Ashley today. This is my main thing. No, the people that are interviewing you, they are students. They may have an exam. They're faculty. They could be an alum. Like, they have an extremely busy day. So it's not necessarily you. Just make sure that you stick to the main thing, which is whatever message that you want to get across. That's the important thing, not necessarily how they're perceiving it. I mean, they can't say that you didn't say it. They can't say that you ruined their day. No, that's not why I'm here. I'm here to tell you that I want to be a medical student. Do you hear me? If you don't hear that part, then I need to restate that. But otherwise, if you like, I'm going to be like, so hopefully my energy transfers over to you. Like, I can share the happy vibes.
I would definitely agree with Ashley. sometimes different things happen in someone's day. Don't take it personally whatsoever. Very few people will intentionally try to do that just to see how you react to it. So just be on your A game and just be yourself. Don't let it affect you at all.
Yeah, I'll kind of just share a little horror story I heard. What you said was some people intentionally do that to see how you respond. And so I did hear from one student that their interviewer just sat there in silence until they said something first. So if you feel like in any way it's not going as well as you want, maybe be the one to initiate like a friendly conversation and kind of open up that pipeline. So definitely good advice, you guys. And real quick, I see some questions about more logistical aspects of the application process. So in terms of appearance, how important do you feel it is to wear makeup or make yourself look attractive, or just clean, hardworking, more serious? What was your guys' approach with that? Or do you know of any one way or the other is more preferred to go?
All right. Well, if you haven't noticed by now, I'm like really honest. So I don't wear makeup. If you want to wear makeup, that's fine. Maybe like, I guess I don't know anything about makeup. So maybe like if you go to the club, I don't go to the club. If you go to the club, like half of that, I guess. I don't know, just not too much to scream like, oh man, just keep it basic, probably fill in your eyebrows if need be, and whatever this is, I think it's like mascara or something. And probably like a little bit of gloss, but not too much, because the person, oh, I can't really say all that. But make sure you don't have like lipstick on your teeth or whatever. For me personally, so my question whenever I was preparing for the interviews, how do I wear my hair? So I'm actually natural. I actually locked my hair. I had this thing on my head because I was dealing with cadavers today and I didn't want my locks to smell like it. But I was natural and I had like a puff. So I was like, I don't really know how welcoming natural hair is right now. So that was my big question. So for McGovern, I actually wore like the puff on top of my head. I was like, okay, hopefully they love it. The following interview, okay, this is where I say the honest part. I actually had a wig on, so I don't even know if some of y'all like wig people. But yeah, I was trying to make sure that I'm not in there like pulling it, just make sure it's in place. The hairs, the curls everywhere, popping. Not too much like in the face. I want you to be able to see my face. You should be able to see my dimples. And I was trying to make sure, I don't know if it's just strictly face, but me, I like to have my clothes ironed if it's really important. If it's not ironed, that means I'm wearing workout clothes, but it's interview day. So I try to cut back on colors. Me personally, my very first interview, I wore a gray suit. I found it on sale at JCPenney's. It was $49. It was supposed to be $109. So I won that day. And I wore a white button down. I did have on stockings, nude color. I played myself because I wore heels and I don't think I had backup shoes. So that was a rookie mistake. Going on to the next interview, I definitely have flats. And also, if you're a lady, have a purse big enough to actually bring backup shoes, because if not, you either have like a little purse and then you have a phone and then you have your shoes. Yeah, I mean, that's a little bit too much. You have to keep up with all this stuff because you don't know where you're moving to next. Backup shoes is the key point. And be comfortable. I wouldn't wear tight clothes. I wouldn't advise that because this is like your very first introduction, like first look, first impression. They see you before they hear you. So keep that in mind. And yeah, what's important to you? For me, it's my natural hair. So I did try the whole wig thing. I don't know if y'all wear a wig, but I had to take it off because it was uncomfortable. I didn't take it off in the interview. That sounds wild. But for the following interview that I had, I was like, I can't rock with that. Let me just go in as me. I am natural hair. Shout out to Prairie View A&M University. My name is Ashley, and here you have it. I did iron my shirt. We good to go.
All right, Ashley, wonderful, wonderful response there. I mean, good thing you didn't take the wig off in the middle there. But I mean, I know, so I guess it does be hot during interview season in some places as well. But what I would say to that is, in regards to like hair and stuff, stay true to you. But as far as your clothes and everything, look presentable, but try your best not to attract too much attention to yourself, if that makes sense. If you have some concerns about, okay, I'm not sure if I will wear this to the interview or whatever, I would maybe take a picture or maybe try bringing it up to your pre-health advisors or just get some additional ideas and stuff. Purchasing clothes for interviews, I feel like definitely can be a bit expensive. If you have any troubles, if you're looking for different discounts and stuff, you can reach out to your university's career center. They may have different resources for you to be able to find discounted clothes and stuff. I myself have to get ready for residency interviews, hopefully within the next few weeks and so. So I mean, this weekend I definitely will be looking out for some good sales for a few suits so that I'm well prepared.
All right, perfect. And to kind of build off of that, do you guys feel like there's a type of interview etiquette on like how to handle and present yourself? What would you recommend to our students here?
All right. Interview etiquette. So I feel like I literally told the person who I was hosting, I was like, I feel like I'm dropping you off for daycare. I want you to do great today. Like, we're gonna get in school today. The main thing that I told her to do was to be herself. I don't care if that means you're like extremely country, whatever it is that you feel like you, however you would behave normally, do that here because you want to be accepted for who you are. But that doesn't mean like if your country sit up here and start a bonfire in the leather lounge or something. Just relax, be yourself, always make eye contact, and be mindful that you are in a professional setting. So kind of watch what you say and how you say, because you don't know who you're around or who you're talking to. From the moment that you leave your house until you get back to your house, I feel like that's the whole interview process in itself, because she doesn't know whether or not I will be participating in the whole like decision of her getting to school. I'm not, but I could easily get in contact with the faculty and say like, hey, this person actually wasn't really great. They wasn't respectful of my home. So if you're living with a host, be mindful of that. Even from the time that you're like walking to the campus, because literally, if I'm in the med center, you don't even know if this person actually like works for the institution or if they're just walking past the institution. So that I'm always greet people regardless of who you are. Even I don't know if it's just like an interview thing or not, but I typically greet people when I see someone. If a door is not open, I try to open it regardless if it's for a female or a male. I really don't have a preference, but I like helping people. So if you can help and chill and relax and keep an inside voice. And I would say don't be quiet, because they're trying to get to know you and they can't know you with their closed mouth.
Absolutely. So I think one portion to specifically talk about etiquette is like the lunch part. So typically in medical school interviews, they'll have like the lunch section where they'll provide you hopefully with some good lunch. I know some schools, I was like, wait, really? And they'll also have some of the medical students, they'll come down, they'll talk with you and everything. Do not slip up during the lunch part. Do not be on your A game the entire day during the interview and then try to slip up during the lunch part, because that matters as well. We've had some students who they tried to take over the conversation with every single question during the lunch portion. And at the end, it was our job to let our dean of admissions know, like, hey, like, so this person right here, we weren't really feeling them during the lunch part because they were cutting up. And what I would say, to agree with Ashley, is that just truthfully be yourself. Try to be as courteous and kind overall. It doesn't matter if you're talking to the janitor or if you're talking to the president of the entire university. Just like be yourself, be nice, be courteous, introduce yourself and stuff, because it's those little connections that are going to matter. For me personally, I'm currently on my ophthalmology rotation at SLU at our eye institute building, and it's like I try to be as nice as possible to everybody up in that building. Even the front door staff, every time they're like, hey, we missed you, where you been? Because I was on away rotations and stuff. But it's like it's interactions like that while you're on your interview that are going to make a huge difference, because they can easily go find somebody and be like, hey, this person right here, they're it. I want to see them here. They were nice to me, they were cool to me. So your interactions throughout the interview, they definitely do matter.
Yeah, those were great answers. So I'm going to try and get through the Q&A questions here because I see we have a few and just a few more minutes. But Lynette's wondering, what should you bring to the interview?
Okay. The most important thing that you should bring to an interview is yourself. That's really the only answer that I have is bring yourself. I did double check with the person I was hosting to make sure like they had like a portfolio. Well, I don't know if it's a portfolio. I can't remember the thing that like you take to interviews that hold like your resumes and like you can take notes on. I can't remember the name of that thing. But I didn't take a resume because they already know who you are. But I took myself and I took a pen and I took a piece of paper so that way I could personally make notes about what I liked about the school and also what I liked about the person who interviewed me. So that way, whenever I sent a thank you email, I would actually like have something to put in there. That's literally all it took.
I definitely agree with Ashley. Take a notebook. The binder thing that you use, the leather ones that looks pretty professional. You could bring it. You may not want to bring it. Depends up to you. Typically, the interview school is going to give you like a folder and a few other things that you carry throughout the day. Just don't take too much stuff because they do have you on like the walking tours and you don't want to be weighed down. If you do have luggage and if you're trying to leave the same day immediately after your interview, check in with the medical school, see if they have a security officer or security guard, and check in your luggage early before your interview. So that's a good tip there.
Okay, great. And then there's two kind of numbers questions here. So do you guys know of any resources for someone who's trying to figure out the ratio of acceptance offers versus number of interviews held? How should a student go about trying to look at their odds that way?
So what I would say about that is I don't have a ratio. I don't know necessarily like, okay, if you have this many interviews, this is your chances of getting accepted. We do have a bit more of that for applying to residency. Traditionally for ophthalmologies, if you have like 13 to 17 interviews, you're like at a 97% rate of being to match somewhere. But for medical school, I can say that it can go either way, no matter how many places you interview at. There is one medical school I interviewed at where I thought I had it there. I was like, man, like all my friends are here. This is a top-notch school. Ooh, I know this, and then I got that denial letter, and it definitely did hurt. But for me personally, I interviewed at I want to say 6 medical schools, and I was accepted at 4 out of the 6. I was waitlisted at one of them, and one of them I was flat out denied. So I can't say what the ratio is for certain, but do your best to apply broadly and try to interview at many places as possible.
Okay, so I'm also not familiar with it thanks to Isaiah, I believe, MSAR. So that's kind of like what I use to gauge everyone in particular, like how many people actually applied to medical school, how many people got into medical school, and that's like overall, or how many people completed the application actually, and how many people matriculated into school. So that's what I started off with. And then I looked at the schools that I wanted to attend, whether it was the average GPA or the average MCAT. I looked at how many people applied to that school, and then I looked at how many people got an interview. And of course, 240 people got in. I also looked at the ethnicity, how many people got in based off of that as well. I personally, so on average, someone would probably give me the advice of actually apply to like 30 or 40 schools. I don't give that advice. I say apply to wherever you literally like want to go because you're gonna be stuck, not stuck, but you're going to grow there for 4 years, and that's really important. So I would say there isn't necessarily like a range. Whatever you can afford and wherever you want to go, that's where you should apply. That should be your only reason for applying. Don't do it because you feel like if you apply to more schools, the greater chance you have of getting in. I don't think it works like that.
Yeah, those are great tips. And I see some people filling in inside the chat saying MSAR kind of post some of the ratios for that kind of stuff. But if you're also interested in a specific school, you can go look at their school website. I think OSU actually has our stats from my class's application round. So you guys can go ahead and check out each of your individual schools if that's something that you're looking for. And so let's see, someone had posted that the application cycle can be quite a long time. Is there any safe time zone to be physically overseas during the application cycle between May and spring?
Okay, so I just want to understand. Okay, so typically after you submit your applications and stuff, the applications typically open up like around, I think, like May and June. My first interview was at Meharry, and that was, I want to say, September. And that's so, oh yeah, St. Louis University. We just started interviewing on Monday. So you should be good up until about like mid to late August, early September if you need to go overseas and travel and stuff. But that's my opinion. Traditionally schools don't interview like well, I don't know. Some Texas schools, don't they interview a little bit earlier?
Oh, I'm shaking my head. Yes, they do. So for me personally, I spent 10 days in Honduras, like right before starting my application. Really fun. And then like during the whole interview process, I spent a week in Cabo, but that was because I'd already interviewed at the school that I wanted to go to. So I did everything early so I could get out of the way early, but it doesn't necessarily mean if you apply early, then that would mean you get an early interview. You could always get an interview in like October or November, but keep in mind that it's not like they email you and they say you have to show up tomorrow for your interview. No, sometimes you get to actually pick a date. So for me, the interview that I did not attend, I actually rescheduled it. So it was originally supposed to be in February, but I rescheduled it for, I think, March. And when I found out that I was accepted, then I declined the interview. So it's like sometimes you have like well over a month or 2 months to prepare, and sometimes you have 2 to 3 weeks to prepare. I would just say that if you know that you're going out of town, just try to keep in touch with your email in which you applied to school for.
And what I will say to that, to end that off, is so true. Very few medical schools will hit you up and be like, "Hey, are you free tomorrow? Come through for this interview." But actually, UCLA did that for me because I'm originally from Los Angeles. There was someone who actually canceled on their interview, and they called me. They're like, "Hey, we have a spot that opened up next week. Will you be able to attend?" So if you are living within a specific region, you could possibly list that on your application or try to figure that out and stuff. But just be prepared for sometimes there may be like a very short time span to be able to travel somewhere for interview. But like I said, very rare, very, very rare.
Wow. Ashley, I do see a couple of questions directed at you that we have. So Alex is wondering if you could talk more about the Texas interview and application process and how it was different from AMCAS and so forth.
Okay. Yes, Texas. I love Texas. It's a great state. AMC, that took me a really long time to complete. I don't think the application was necessarily different. The only difference with the AMC versus Texas that I can remember for the application is that AMC gives you the opportunity to list, I believe, like 3 or memorable or like the most important activities. I think something like that gives the reason as to why. Whereas Texas doesn't. You literally like list like whatever it's research, volunteering, shadowing, extracurriculars, like whatever it is. You just give a general description, or if you want, I guess you can go into details. I'm going to be honest and say that I did not go into detail. I would say that I completed my Texas application really fast because I think I was like just tired of the interview process and I just wanted to get it completed so that way I would be able to get it verified sooner rather than later. But I did double check for grammatical errors. I just didn't spend like my whole life completing the application, whereas I did for AAMC. So also AAMC, I don't think they have it set up to where you pay like one price and you get to send it to like X amount of schools. Whereas Texas, you pay one price and you get to send it to all of the schools in Texas. So that's definitely a plus, and our tuition is cheaper. So that's also a plus. I do know that there wasn't a limit on the amount of letter recommendations that we could have for Texas. Oh, no, there is, but there isn't for AAMC. So for Texas, there's 3. So 2 of them is a must and the 3rd is an optional. I personally got one from the person I did research with at Baylor. I also got one from my 2 faculty members at Prairie A&M who taught me, and that was pretty much it. And I want to say, well, I didn't have any issues with my AMCAS application. Texas, I needed to switch out the person who wrote my letter of rec. And I would say that they did a really good job at communicating. I didn't have to call them, just a simple like email, and they responded within less than 24 hours. So they were really good. I'm not really sure if I answered your question. If I didn't, then just hit me on the side.
Yeah, perfect. So we're actually a little bit over here, and just to be respectful to your guys' time, I'm going to go ahead and say thank you everyone for joining us. If you do have any other questions or you weren't able to speak to Ashley or Aaron about something specifically, feel free to reach out on the site. I know you guys are always very active on there. So go ahead and connect with them if you haven't and shoot them a message. Remember to fill out your profiles, and if you're looking for a mentor, go through that mentorship page and get connected with some others. There's a lot of great people and resources on diverse medicine. So I guess real quick, right before we end it, do you guys have any last piece of advice to leave everyone with before they go off and do their interviews?
I'd say last piece of advice is, of course, have fun during this interview process. Enjoy yourselves. I know that it's going to be fairly expensive and you're going to be tired, X, Y, and Z, but truly have fun. Be yourself. Don't worry too much. Things will work out when they are supposed to work out. If you put in the work and the effort now, they definitely will come back to reward you in the future. Do your best. Be yourself. Have fun.
Okay, so I will not tell you not to worry, because I'm pretty sure like minutes or hours before your interview, you're gonna be like very nervous. I will tell you that in that moment, like, know who you are, have confidence in yourself, and be able to express that to whoever you're talking to, whoever you meet. Understand that you are important. You have to be, because no one calls you to say like, hey, I got free time. I got time to interview you for just in case purposes. No, these people are busy. If you look at the numbers for me specifically, I know that roughly 5,800 people applied to my school. About like 850 of us were interviewed. And then from that, 240 people were accepted. So understand that there are like major cuts. Like, know that you are important and use that time wisely. It's limited. So while they're interviewing you, make sure that you interview them and find out as much information as possible, because sometimes there's not a lot of information available online. There's only a limited amount of information. So use your time wisely. Go to socials. If there is a social event the day before, I don't know, do everything that you possibly can and try to connect with the students, because they can give you insight that you may not get from somewhere else.
Awesome, guys. Thank you so much. Thank you, Ashley and Aaron, for joining us and sharing all of your great advice. And thanks everyone for attending. We wish you the best of luck on your application process, and never hesitate to reach out. All of us here are happy to share any insight we can with you. So that being said, everyone have a good night. If you're interested in scribing, don't forget to register for our webinar happening next week, I'm sorry. And yeah, we'll see you guys next week. Bye, guys.